Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks. And Wargaming just announced massive news today, and that is that they are enabling all of the players who are playing currently in the CIS region on the Russian servers to migrate to the European servers starting in September if they want to. So, for all of the players who play on the EU server, watch out, the Russians are coming. Now, if any of you haven't been keeping up to date with World of Tanks recently, let me give you a brief history. Wargaming was started in Belarus, and recently they decided with the invasion of Ukraine that they could no longer operate there and maintain World of Tanks as a worldwide international product. And so Wargaming have effectively severed ties and left their main development studios, which were located in Belarus. Their HQ is in Cyprus, as it has been for a number of years, and they will have no more operations inside of Belarus or Russia or the CIS region. They now have a separate company, Leicester Games, that will be handling that, although Wargaming, at least they say that there is complete structural and financial separation between Wargaming and Leicester Games, which they are effectively sub-licensing their title to. Since then, there have been big developments, such as the infamous Super Test being moved from the RU server to the EU server, as you might have seen some of the rare vehicles in the game over the last few months. The two companies are now effectively taking the following steps of the process, as Wargaming is saying: the creation of a separate game client under Leicester Games and a new game and logo for players in Russia and Belarus. And as Wargaming quite rightly want to keep what is about 75% of its player base, that's the amount of players that play in the CIS region compared to EU, NA and Asia combined, which is a quarter of the World of Tanks player base. They are giving the option to all CIS realm players with a transfer to the EU region, which will be operated by Wargaming. Now, these transfers are going to start in September, but you may or may not actually see this large influx of Russian players if you are an EU server player, at least initially. And that is because Wargaming will create new EU servers, EU3 and EU4, which only Russian players will be able to join, at least for now. Likewise, if you play on the European server and in September you see EU3 and EU pop up, you will not have access to EU3 or EU4. However, Wargaming have announced there will be a workaround, and that is that you can play in a platoon with players effectively on EU3 or EU4, which is going to be the new RU region, kind of. If one of those players invites you to a platoon, it will automatically switch you to that server, and vice versa. If you've got any friends who are currently playing on the CIS region and they want to come to the EU server while they're going to be locked to EU3 or EU4, if you invite them in a platoon, then they're going to be able to come over and play with you on EU1 and EU2. Wargaming have also stated, unless I'm mistaken in the frequently asked questions, that if the platoon is disbanded, the player can continue playing on the server until they log out or they switch back to their allotted server. So will this loophole mean that some Russians are begging their EU friends to allow them to play on EU1 or EU2 with an invite, and then they have to stay logged in for the rest of the day? Well, that remains to be seen. But what real benefit do they have? Obviously, they're going to have a lot higher ping on EU1 or EU2, something that Wargaming have addressed with EU3 and EU4, with EU3 being located in Luxembourg and EU4 being located in Kazakhstan, which is going to be recommended for players located in Central Asia. Will we see the Kazakhstani server be a bit like the South American server, which is a bit of a meme, at least on the NA side of things? All of this remains to be seen. It's quite interesting that Wargaming are only putting up 2 servers, because if you think about 75% of the player base playing on the CIS region, with, as far as I'm aware, the RU region getting about 500,000 concurrent players playing on the server, or the servers every night, if there's a huge amount of players who come to the EU server because they want to play with Wargaming rather than stick with Leicester Studios, then I really doubt whether one server will be enough. It's going to be very interesting, however, to see how Wargaming can operate their servers so that those players can get the best ping, but still not operate directly within Russia or Belarus. Realistically, if a lot of players come, I do expect that we're probably going to be seeing an EU5 and an EU6 region, with most likely them having multiple servers in Kazakhstan or maybe even one in Mongolia. Undoubtedly, Wargaming have a massive challenge here. How are they going to try and placate both audiences to try and make sure that the Russian servers have good ping, but also still prove to the rest of the world that they are truly a business that is not operating in Russia and Belarus. One reason why this is really exciting news for someone like me, a content creator on the European server, is that I know that I have a lot of my audience that actually play on the Russian server, and I haven't been able to either directly interact with them in game or be able to provide them a lot of the loot that I do through Twitch drops, for example. However, if any of you, my audience that play on the CIS region, want to make the jump to EU3 or EU4, then you will be able to participate in all game events on the European server, such as special events, competitive game modes, and premium shop offers. And I presume you're going to be able to get all of those tasty Twitch drops, which I give out every week. This does actually pose really interesting predicaments for Wargaming with a lot of these auction-based events which they're releasing, like the one that's going on now. And that is that if Wargaming are going to have EU1, EU2, EU3, EU4, and then possibly more, depending on how many Russians want to migrate over, then they're going to have to increase the allotments for events where rare tanks are available. Currently on the EU server, I think there are 15,000 Object 268 version 5s available for purchase on day one of the auction. Now, if up to 75% of the World of Tanks players come to the EU server, then that will increase the player base by not once, not twice, but 3 or 4 times. Are we going to have one mega server where Wargaming actually have to release 120,000 ultra rare tanks every time they have an auction? And furthermore, what are the complications with the fact that these Russian players are going to effectively have to compete with EU players with regards to economics? Now, the average wage in Russia is substantially less than especially the Western countries in Europe. I strongly doubt that Wargaming are going to lower the price of their premium content with, if you converted your Object 268 version 5s, like 700,000 free experience like you might have needed, and it cost you about 70 to 80 pounds of gold to be able to get that amount of free experience. For an EU player, that's very expensive. For a Russian player, that's kind of like weeks of your income. Or shall I say disposable income. For example, the average wage in Belarus, I believe, is probably about $400 a month. My mother-in-law, who is a solicitor, doesn't even make $1,000 a month, which from a Western perspective, some solicitors are kind of making that every day. That is the unfortunate economic disparity about when you are running an international product. And players from the Russian server are going to have to deal with EU prices if they choose to come over, if there's even any difference in the prices currently. One of the things that I'm really interested about this is what will happen to all of the differences between the RU server and the EU server. For example, Santa Claus on the EU server looks completely different to on the Russian server. And what about all of the glut of special T-44s that are available on the Russian server that I believe have been available with participating events with things like Burger King or even electrical companies, unless I'm completely speaking out of my backside, when those players with those vehicles transfer to the EU server? Does that mean that we're going to have a whole variety of very unusual looking tanks suddenly appearing on the EU server? Possibly. One of the really interesting things about this is I always thought as the twilight years of World of Tanks started to appear and to start to press on, what servers would inevitably gobble up other servers. And eventually, maybe not now, maybe not in 5 years, maybe not in 10 years, when the amount of players who are wanting to play on the NA server becomes unsustainable to have decent queue times, I do expect that Wargaming would probably migrate all of those players to just the European server and then maybe have an extra server still to run over there. I obviously wouldn't want that to happen. I would want World of Tanks to still be its own individual thing in America. Because the day that something like that happens really means that the World of Tanks party might be starting to end. I would have never have thought in a million years that it would actually be the EU server gobbling up the CIS region or the Russian server but not because of dwindling player numbers, but because of an invasion and politics. My gut instinct is this will actually be a great thing for the European server. I can only see that more of the keys are going to be held by decision makers who are currently employed in Wargaming EU. Whichever way it goes, it's undoubtedly going to be an interesting new journey in Wargaming's chapter of the game being out for 12 years and having to do possibly what is going to be one of the biggest operations in their history. Will they actually be able to continue to create content for the game, or are they going to be firefighting all of these operational changes? That remains to be seen. One final thing I'd like to say is I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of EU players who probably feel, oh no, the Russians are coming. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have a more sensational title of the YouTube video today. And I wanted to finish by suggesting that we're all gamers, we're all players of this game World of Tanks that we love. And with the way that Wargaming is setting up, hopefully with the EU3 and EU4, they're going to minimize the negative impact that it has on the EU players. And so I would challenge, if you play on the EU server like me, to embrace our fellow gamers, welcome them to the battlefield eventually if they start to open up players to play on whatever server they want. And in an age of isolation and fear, at least with regards to what's going on with global politics, why don't we try and remember that we're all so lucky to share this escapism that we experience through video games, and try not to turn it into more stale global politics. Let's all play together and have some fun. And I personally will welcome any players who are coming from the CIS region who want to now be able to benefit from the drops on my Twitch channel, or just want to put up with my terrible content, whichever platform it is on. So anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And I'm sure that the comment section is going to be very interesting. Is this massively bad news for you that the Russian server is going to be joining the EU server? Are you a Russian player? Please let me know what you think. Are you going to move to the EU server? Are you going to stay on the CIS region? And if you're an EU player, do you think that Wargaming has done enough to keep the two player bases separate, and so you feel that the impact on you and your game is going to be minimal? Or do you feel like Wargaming needs to do more? I'm very interested to hear what you all have to say in a very unexpected event. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.